What the hell? Look who just walked in. Smell something, Derek? The smell of a slum. Rotten and decay. Disgusting. Every time one of them sits down, I have to wipe the whole table after. He shouldn't be here. Get out. They scoffed. The man in the gray hoodie approached the counter. His voice was soft, almost too calm. Good afternoon. Can I see the menu? Marissa looked him up and down. There's no room for tolerance here, buddy. Derek snorted behind her back. The man said nothing. No arguing. No raising his voice. No leaving. He pulled out a chair, sat down, and observed everything, especially the two employees. He watched them whispering behind the counter. By listening carefully, he uncovered a shocking secret that made him stop cold. The house sat at the end of a long gravel driveway, hidden behind a row of oak trees. From the outside, it looked modest, a pale blue guest house with a sagging porch and a garden that needed weeding. Nothing about it screamed money. That was the point. Inside, Callum Voss was already awake. He stood barefoot in the kitchen, pouring coffee into a chipped ceramic mug that said, "World's Cook." His mother had given it to him years ago as a joke. The handle was cracked. He never replaced it. Callum was 46, tall, broad-shouldered, the kind of man who filled a doorway, but moved through it quietly. This morning he wore a gray hoodie, faded jeans, and a pair of sneakers so worn the sole was peeling at the toe. No watch, no chain, no ring. He looked like a man heading to the laundromat, not a man who owned 62 restaurants worth $90 million. He sat at the kitchen table and opened his phone. A scratched-up Android he kept specifically for days like this. He scrolled through Yelp reviews for Golden Hearth Diner, location number 14 in Westerville, Ohio. A suburban, mixed-income neighborhood. 3 stars. That bothered him. One review said, "Food was fine, staff was rude, felt like they didn't want me there." Another, "Great pancakes, but the cashier acted like I was bothering her." He sipped his coffee, read them again, then set the phone down. He reached into the kitchen drawer and pulled out a small laminated photograph. A woman in her 50s stood in front of a tiny storefront with a hand-painted sign that read, "Golden Hearth." She wore a flour-dusted apron and the widest smile he had ever seen. Eleanor Voss, his mother. She had opened the first Golden Hearth with a $6,000 loan and a belief that food was dignity. Her motto was still printed on every menu in every location. Everyone eats equal at Golden Hearth. She had passed away from pancreatic cancer, quiet and fast, just like her. Callum had made her a promise before she died. He would visit every location, not as the CEO in a tailored suit, but as a customer, a regular person. He wanted to see what his people did when no one important was watching. He tucked the photo into his jacket pocket and grabbed his car keys. Today was location 14's turn. The diner sat on a corner lot between a nail salon and a dry cleaner. Callum pulled into the parking lot in a 10-year-old Honda Civic, another prop. His actual car, a black Mercedes S-Class, stayed in the garage on inspection days. He sat in the car for a moment and looked at the building. Red brick exterior, big glass windows. The Golden Hearth logo, a skillet over a flame, glowed in warm neon above the entrance. Through the window, he could see the checkered floor, the red vinyl booths, the rotating pie case near the register. It looked right. It looked like his mother's place. He stepped out and walked toward the door. A small bell chimed as he pushed it open. The smell hit him first. Griddle butter, fresh coffee, maple syrup. The sounds came next. Silverware clinking, a coffee machine hissing, low conversation from a handful of customers. An elderly couple shared pancakes in a corner booth. A young mother cut waffles into small pieces for her 2 kids. And there, Right next to the entrance, mounted on the wall in a dark wooden frame, was a photograph of Eleanor Voss. The same flour-dusted apron, the same wide smile. The frame was crooked. A layer of dust sat on the glass. Callum looked at it for a long moment. His jaw tightened. He said nothing. Behind the counter stood 2 employees. Marissa Kane, 34. Cashier, 11 months at this location. Bright smile when the regional manager visited. Everyone else got the bare minimum, or worse. Derek Holt, 28, 5 months in, still learning. And what he was learning came straight from Marissa. Who to smile at, who to rush, who to ignore, and who to make feel unwelcome. Neither of them had ever met Callum Voss. Corporate photos showed a man in a tailored suit and a clean shave. The man standing in their doorway in a gray hoodie and peeling sneakers didn't match that image. Not even close. Callum walked in, and the first thing he heard was exactly what the Yelp reviews had warned him about. He didn't react to their words. Not a flinch, not a glare. He just stood at the counter with his hands folded, waiting like a man who had all the time in the world. Marissa and Derek were still laughing behind the register. Marissa had her back half turned, scrolling through her phone. Derek leaned against the coffee machine with his arms crossed. Neither acknowledged Callum standing 3 feet away. Seconds passed. The fluorescent light above the counter buzzed faintly. A fly circled the rim of an uncovered sugar dispenser. The air smelled like griddle grease and burnt toast. A small bell chimed behind him. The door opened. A white man in a polo shirt walked in. Mid-40s, khakis, sunglasses on his head. Derek straightened up instantly. His whole posture changed. Shoulders back, smile wide. "Hey, welcome to Golden Hearth, sir. Table for one or grabbing something to go?" "Just a coffee." "Coming right up. We got fresh apple crumble, too. Just came out of the oven." The white customer laughed. "You're making it hard to say no." Derek grinned. "That's the job, man." Callum watched this from 3 feet away. Still standing, still waiting, still invisible. The warmth in Derek's voice sounded like a completely different person from the one who had told him to get out moments earlier. He pulled a small notebook from his back pocket. It looked like a grocery list. But it wasn't. It was his inspection checklist. He uncapped a pen and wrote 2 words. "No greeting." He scanned the dining room. The condiment station. Ketchup bottles smudged with fingerprints. Empty napkin dispenser. A mustard bottle with dried crust around the cap. He wrote it down. Booth 4. A tear in the vinyl seat patched with peeling duct tape. Crumbs from a previous customer still on the table. He wrote that down too. And the photograph of his mother by the entrance. Crooked, dusty. He had already seen it. He didn't write that one down. That one was staying in his chest. Finally, Marissa turned around. She looked at Callum, the way someone looks at a stain on the carpet. "You still here?" "Yes, ma'am. I'd like to order, please." She didn't pick up a pad, didn't pull up the register, just stared at him, arms crossed, weight on one hip. "What do you want?" It wasn't a question, it was a wall. "I'll have the Eleanor special, please." Marissa looked at Derek and let out a short laugh through her nose. "The Eleanor special. Fried chicken plate, collard greens, cornbread, the whole thing." "You sure about that?" "Yes, ma'am. It's going to take a while. Kitchen's backed up. We got a $1 menu. Might be more your speed." Callum glanced at this kitchen window behind her. 2 plates sat under the heat lamp, ready to go. A cook stood idle, wiping down the same spot on the counter. The kitchen wasn't backed up. She just didn't want to serve him the full meal. "I'll wait. No rush." Marissa rolled her eyes so hard her whole head moved. She punched something into the register. Slowly. $14.50. Callum paused. He knew the menu. Every item. The Eleanor special was $11.95. He had designed the pricing himself, but he didn't say anything. Not yet. He pulled out a 20 and placed it on the counter. Marissa took it with 2 fingers, pinched at the very corner like she didn't want to touch where he'd touched. She dropped his change on the counter instead of into his hand. Coins scattered. One rolled off the edge and hit the floor. She didn't pick it up. Didn't even glance down. "Have a seat. We'll call you." Callum gathered his change piece by piece, bent down, and picked the coin off the floor. He sat down in the booth closest to the counter, deliberately within earshot. He placed his notebook on the table, pen ready, and watched. A white family walked in. A father, a mother and 2 kids, a boy around 6, and a girl around 4. Derek practically jogged to greet them. "Hey, welcome in, guys. You guys hungry?" The little boy nodded. Derek reached behind the counter and pulled out the cookie jar. A big glass jar with the Golden Hearth logo. Company policy. Every child gets a free cookie. Every child. No exceptions. Page 12, Section 3 of the Employee Handbook. One of Eleanor's original rules. "Here you go, buddy. One for your sister, too. Fresh baked this morning." The parents smiled. The kids lit up. Normal, warm, the way it was supposed to be. A short while later, a black woman walked in with her son. The boy looked about 7. Bright eyes. Batman backpack. He held his mother's hand and looked around the diner with quiet excitement. Derek didn't move. No greeting. No smile. He just kept wiping the same spot on the counter he'd already wiped twice. The woman ordered 2 sandwiches, paid in cash, sat down. The boy looked over at the other kids eating cookies. His eyes went wide. He tugged his mother's sleeve. "Mama, can I have a cookie too?" She looked at the counter. "Excuse me, do the kids get cookies? I saw the other children got some." Derek glanced at the jar, half full. At least a dozen cookies visible through the glass. Golden brown, right there in plain sight. "Oh, yeah, sorry. Those were actually the last ones." He didn't blink, didn't hesitate, just lied right to her face, with the jar sitting behind him for anyone to see. The woman paused. She looked at the jar. She could count the cookies from where she stood, but she didn't argue. She just pressed her lips together, took her son's hand, and sat down. The boy looked back at the jar one more time. His lip trembled. Then he put his head down on the table and pressed his face into his folded arms. His Batman backpack slumped off one shoulder. Callum's pen stopped moving. He stared at the little boy for a long time. His grip tightened around the notebook until his knuckles went pale. But he stayed seated. He kept watching. A white woman in her 60s approached the counter with a coupon. Callum recognized it. A Golden Hearth buy one, get one from the previous month's flyer. Expired. Date printed clearly in the corner. Marissa took it, scanned it, smiled warmly. "No problem at all, hon. Let me apply that for you." The woman thanked her and left happy. Marissa even waved goodbye. Not 2 minutes later, a black man in dusty work boots and a reflective vest stepped up with the same coupon. Same flyer, same design. But his was still valid. Perfectly good. Marissa held it up like she was inspecting a counterfeit bill. She turned it over, held it to the light, squinted at it. This isn't scanning. It's the same coupon from the website. I printed it this morning. "Sir, I can't override the system. If it doesn't scan, it doesn't scan. But I just saw you take one from the lady before. That was a different promotion." Ice cold, flat, final. "You want to order or not? There's a line behind you." There was no line. The space behind him was completely empty. The man exhaled slowly. He looked at the coupon in his hand, folded it carefully, put it back in his pocket, paid full price, took his bag quietly, and left without another word. Callum watched him walk out the door, watched the door swing shut slowly behind him, watched the man climb into a dented pickup truck and sit there for a long moment, just staring through the windshield before finally pulling away. Callum reached into his jacket pocket under the table. Out of sight, he pressed his thumb against the laminated photograph of his mother, held it there, the smooth plastic, the worn edges soft under his fingertip. He looked up at the framed photo on the wall, Eleanor Voss smiling in her flour-dusted apron. Everyone eats equal at Golden Hearth. His jaw was so tight it ached. He pulled out his phone and typed a text to Preston Hale at location 14. Significant issues. Don't alert anyone. He stared at the screen, added one more line. I'm staying. Sent it. Put the phone down. Raised his hand toward the counter. Could I get a coffee, please? Marissa poured it without looking. No lid. She set it down on the counter hard enough that it sloshed over the rim and pooled across the surface. There you go, hon. Coffee soaked into Callum's sleeve as he picked it up, warm through the fabric. She didn't apologize, didn't offer a napkin, just turned around and went back to scrolling her phone. Callum wiped his sleeve with the back of his hand, picked up the mug, took a slow sip, and kept watching. The lunch rush came and went. The diner had thinned out. The elderly couple was gone. The mother with her 2 kids was gone. Most of the booths sat empty now, napkins crumpled on plates, ketchup smears drying on tables no one had bothered to wipe. Callum was still in his booth. Same seat, same cold coffee, same notebook open in front of him. Marissa and Derek stood behind the counter. The dining room was quiet enough now that their voices carried, not because they were being loud, but because they had stopped caring who might hear them. Marissa leaned against the register and crossed her arms. I'm so sick of this neighborhood, Derek. So sick of it. Derek glanced up from his phone. What now? Look around. A few years ago, this place was nice, clean. Normal people came in, sat down, tipped, and left. Now, she waved her hand toward the dining room like she was shooing a fly. It's a whole different crowd, more and more of them rolling in here like they own the place. She didn't say who them was. She didn't need to. Derek nodded. Yeah, it's changed. Changed? Marissa laughed, a hard, ugly sound. That's a polite word for it. I call it ruined. They never tip. Not once. They take forever to order, let their kids run wild, and leave the table looking like a garbage dump every single time. And then they have the nerve to complain about the service. Callum's pen had stopped moving. His coffee sat untouched. He didn't look at them. He kept his eyes on his notebook and just listened. And they always want something for free, Marissa went on, her voice louder now, more relaxed. A coupon, a discount, a free refill. Like we owe them something. Like this whole place was built for them. Callum's thumb pressed hard into the edge of the table. The laminated photo of his mother sat in his jacket pocket 3 inches from his heart. This place was built for them. That was exactly who Eleanor Voss had built it for. But then the conversation shifted, and what came next made Callum's blood run cold. Marissa lowered her voice just slightly, just enough that she thought she was being careful. She wasn't. You know what I started doing a few months ago? Derek leaned in. What? Every time one of them orders, the ones who obviously don't belong here, I add a little something to the bill. A service charge, $1.50, sometimes $2. Just enough that it doesn't look suspicious. Derek's eyebrows shot up. Wait, you're adding charges? Like fake charges? Messier service fee. That's what it prints on the receipt. Nobody ever checks. And even if they do, what are they going to do? They don't know what's supposed to be on there and what isn't. Derek was quiet for a second. Then he grinned. How much you pull so far? Since I started, close to $3 grand, maybe more. Adds up fast when you do it 10, 15 times a day. And nobody from corporate ever noticed. Marissa laughed. Corporate doesn't check receipts line by line. Revenue goes up. Nobody asks questions. Besides, she leaned in closer and dropped her voice, but Callum caught every single word. These people never look at their receipts anyway. They can barely count. Derek rubbed the back of his neck, shrugged. I've been doing it too, last couple months. I know. Marissa smiled, slow and proud. Taught you well. Probably pulled about $1,500 so far. See? Easy money. They'll never know. And even if somebody complains, who's going to believe them over us? She said it like a punchline. Derek laughed. Marissa laughed harder. Callum's coffee cup was frozen halfway to his mouth. He set it down without drinking. His hand was trembling. Not from fear. From something that lived much deeper than fear. He had just heard 2 of his own employees confess to stealing from his customers. From Black and Latino customers. Systematically. For months. In a restaurant named after his mother. Under a photograph of her face that hung 5 feet from where they stood. And they were laughing about it like it was a game. He breathed in slowly through his nose, held it for a long second, let it out through his mouth. Then Marissa's eyes snapped toward him. Hey, you! Callum looked up. You've been sitting there for over an hour. You done or what? Still finishing my coffee. Marissa walked out from behind the counter. She crossed the dining room and stood directly over his booth, hands on her hips, chin tilted down, looking at him like he was something stuck to the bottom of her shoe. Look, this isn't a shelter. This isn't a library. You eat, you pay, you leave. That's how it works here. We need this table for actual paying customers. Callum looked around the diner. 6 booths sat empty. Dirty plates and crumpled napkins piled on 3 of them. Nobody had bussed a single table since the rush ended. Which table do you need it for? He asked. Calm, quiet. Marissa's nostrils flared. Her neck tensed. Don't get smart with me, Derek called from behind the counter. Come on, man. Be considerate. Other people are waiting. There were no other people. The door hadn't opened in a long while. Callum looked at both of them. A long, still beat passed. Then he asked evenly, Has anyone from corporate ever visited this location? Marissa scoffed so hard she almost choked. Corporate? Please. They don't waste their time on a place like this. Nobody's watching. Nobody cares. Callum nodded very slowly. I see. He let her walk away. Then he looked down at his receipt for the first time since he'd sat down. There it was. Line 4, printed in small gray text. Miscellaneous service fee, $1.50. He picked up the menu from the table, flipped to the back where all fees and disclaimers were listed. No such charge existed. Not on any page, not in any fine print. He pulled out his phone and photographed the receipt. Close up. Sharp. Clear. Then he remembered the elderly couple. They had left earlier, but their receipt was still sitting on the table. Nobody had cleared it. Callum stood, walked over casually, and looked down. Same line, same charge. Miscellaneous service fee, $1.50. He photographed that, too. He now had everything. First-hand witness to discriminatory service, the confession heard with his own ears, and hard documentary evidence. Sitting in his phone, he walked back to his booth and placed both receipts flat on the table, side by side. Then the front door chimed one more time. A young black woman walked in. Early 20s, college student. You could tell by the textbooks crammed into her tote bag, the university lanyard around her neck, and the pen marks staining her fingers. Her jacket was too thin for the weather outside. Her sneakers had a hole near the left toe. She stood at the counter and studied the menu board on the wall for a long time. Her lips moved silently, adding numbers in her head. She reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out a handful of crumpled bills and loose coins. She spread them across the counter carefully and counted them twice. She was short, $1.20. Excuse me, she said softly. Could I get the soup and half a sandwich? I'm a little short, but I could. Marissa cut her off. If you can't pay, you can't eat. That's how it works. This isn't a soup kitchen, honey." The girl's face crumbled. She started gathering her coins off the counter one by one with shaking fingers. A quarter slipped and rolled across the tile floor. She bent down to pick it up, and a textbook tumbled out of her bag. Pages splaying open on the ground. Derek watched from behind the register, arms folded. He didn't say a word. Didn't offer to cover the difference. Didn't look uncomfortable. He just stood there, watching her scramble on the floor like it was background noise. Callum stood up. The chair scraped hard against the tile. The sound cut through the silent diner like a blade. He walked to the counter, reached into his pocket, pulled out a $20 bill, and placed it flat on the counter right next to the girl's scattered coins. "Her meal's on me. Give her whatever she wants. And give her the cookie she should have been offered the second she walked through that door." Dead silence. The college student looked at Callum. Her eyes were wet. Her chin trembled. "You don't have to do that, sir." "I know," Callum said quietly, "but someone should." He looked at Marissa, then at Derek. Neither moved. Neither spoke. Callum nodded at the girl. She whispered, "Thank you." He walked back to his booth, sat down, and pulled out his phone. One call. "Preston, I need you at location 14 right now. Bring the full audit team and call Simone Rivera. Tell her she's getting a promotion today." He hung up, set the phone face down on the table, and waited at Gilla. It didn't take long. Callum sat in his booth without moving. He didn't check his phone, didn't fidget, didn't look at the door. He just sat with his hands folded on the table, the two receipts lined up in front of him like evidence at a trial. Marissa was behind the counter again, complaining to Derek about a customer who'd left a bad Yelp review the week before. Derek was half listening, half scrolling through his phone. Neither of them noticed the black SUV that pulled into the parking lot outside. Neither of them noticed the three people who stepped out of it. The bell above the door chimed. Preston Hale walked in first. Gray suit, leather briefcase. Regional Operations Director for Golden Hearth Diners. Behind him came two members of the corporate compliance team, a man and a woman, both carrying tablets and file folders. And behind them walked Simone Rivera, black woman, mid-30s, shift supervisor from location number 9, employee of the year 2 years running, the kind of manager who remembered every regular's name and every kid's favorite cookie. Marissa looked up from behind the counter. Her smile switched on automatically. The corporate smile. The one she saved for people who looked like they mattered. "Hi, welcome to Golden Hearth. How can I—" Preston didn't look at her. He didn't stop at the counter. He walked straight past her across the dining room to the booth where Callum sat. He extended his hand. "Mr. Voss, I came as fast as I could. What do you need?" The name landed in the room like a grenade. Voss. Marissa's hand froze on the register. Her smile dissolved. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Derek's phone slipped from his fingers and clattered on the counter. His eyes went wide, then wider as they moved from Preston to Callum, from Callum to the photograph on the wall, and back again. Eleanor Voss, the woman in the frame, the flour-dusted apron, the wide smile. Voss. Callum stood up slowly. He removed his baseball cap and set it on the table. He straightened his hoodie. He looked at Marissa, then at Derek. Then he spoke. His voice was calm, level, almost soft. And that made it 10 times worse. "My name is Callum Voss. I'm the founder's son. I'm the CEO of Golden Hearth Diners. I own this building. I own every building in this chain, all 62 of them. And I've been sitting in this booth for the last 2 hours watching everything that happens in this restaurant." Nobody moved. The coffee machine gurgled behind the counter. A car passed on the street outside. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead. Every small sound felt enormous in the silence. Marissa's face had gone white. Not pale. White. The blood had drained from her cheeks so fast it looked like she might faint. Her hands gripped the edge of the counter. Her knuckles matched the color of her face. Derek took a step backward, then another, like the floor was tilting beneath him. Callum didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. When I walked through that front door, neither of you greeted me. One of you told me to get out. The other one said I smelled like a slum. He paused. Let the words land. I ordered the Eleanor Special, a menu item named after my mother. You charged me $14.50 for an $11.95 plate. The extra $2.55 included a charge that doesn't exist on any menu in this company. A MyC service fee that you invented to steal from customers based on the color of their skin. He placed both receipts on the counter side by side. I watched you deny a valid coupon to a black man while accepting an expired one from a white woman moments earlier. I watched you refuse free cookies to a 7-year-old black boy while the jar sat half full behind you. I watched you humiliate a college student who was $1.20 short of a meal. While you've been skimming thousands of dollars from this register for months. Marissa opened her mouth. I'm not finished. She closed it. Callum took one step closer to the counter. He looked directly at Marissa. His eyes didn't waver. You walk past my mother's photograph every single day. You serve food from recipes she created. You earn a paycheck from a company she built with $6,000 and a dream that every person who walked through that door would be treated with dignity. And what did you do with that? You turned her restaurant into a place where people are robbed and humiliated because of how they look. Marissa's eyes were wet now. Her lip trembled. She looked at the floor. Callum turned to Derek. You've been here 5 months. 5 months, and you already learned that cruelty is a system. You learned who to smile at and who to ignore, who gets cookies and who doesn't, who gets kindness and who gets contempt. That's on her for teaching you, but it's on you for choosing to follow. Derek couldn't look at him. His eyes were fixed on a spot on the floor somewhere near his feet. His arms hung at his sides. He looked like a man who wanted to disappear. Callum stepped back. He looked at Preston. They're done. 2 words. That's all it took. And the room cracked open. Marissa's mouth started moving before her brain could catch up. Wait, sir, I can explain. It was just a joke. We were just talking. We never actually. Preston Hale opened his briefcase and pulled out a tablet. Register logs. Transaction records. Hundreds of lines from the last 11 months. Every order, every charge, every manual adjustment. All time-stamped. All traceable. The data says otherwise, Preston said. Marissa's eyes darted across the screen. Her breathing got shallow. I didn't mean it like that. I swear it wasn't about race. I was just trying to. Trying to what? Callum asked. She couldn't finish the sentence. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish pulled out of water. Then she shifted. Her voice cracked. Her eyes filled up. Please, I have kids. I'm a single mother. I need this job. If I lose this, I don't know what I'm going to. Callum looked at her for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, but every word hit like a hammer. The young woman you turned away a short while ago, the one who was $1.20 short, she's someone's kid too. The little boy you lied to about the cookies, he's someone's kid. Every customer you stole from, every person you humiliated in this building, they all have families. You didn't think about their kids. You don't get to use yours as a shield. Marissa's tears were falling now, fully, openly. Her shoulders shook. She gripped the counter with both hands to keep herself standing. Callum didn't comfort her. He didn't look away either. He just let the silence sit there, heavy and unforgiving. Derek hadn't said a word since the reveal. He stood against the back wall near the kitchen door, face gray. When Callum looked at him, Derek flinched. I'm sorry, Derek whispered. She told me that's how things were done here, and you went along with it, Callum said. For 5 months you didn't ask a question. You didn't report it. You didn't stop. You chose to follow. Derek's chin dropped down to his chest. He had nothing left to say. Callum turned to Preston. Terminate both of them effective immediately for cause. Document everything. The discriminatory behavior, the fraudulent charges, the customer complaints, all of it. Preston nodded. He pulled 2 termination letters from his briefcase and placed them on the counter. Golden Hearth letterhead at the top, blank signature line at the bottom. Sign here, Preston said. Your final paychecks will be mailed. You are no longer authorized to be on this property. Marissa signed with a trembling hand. She couldn't even read what she was signing through the tears. Derek signed without looking up. Callum wasn't finished. Preston, I want a full audit of this register going back 11 months. Every transaction. Cross-reference the overcharges with customer payment records. Every person who was charged that fake service fee gets a full refund, a written apology from corporate, and a $50 Golden Hearth gift card. Every single one. No exceptions. Preston typed it into his tablet. Done. And file a report with the Westerville Police Department. What happened here isn't just a policy violation. It's theft. It's fraud. And it was targeted by race. I want it on record. Preston nodded again. I'll have it filed by end of day. Marissa was escorted to the door by one of the compliance officers. She didn't look back. Derek followed a few steps behind, his head down, his hands stuffed in his pockets. The bell above the door chimed as they walked out, the same bell that had chimed when Callum walked in earlier. The diner was quiet now, just Callum, Preston, the compliance team, and Simone Rivera, who had been standing near the entrance the entire time, watching everything in silence. Callum turned to her. Simone, this location needs a new manager, someone who understands why we opened these doors in the first place. Someone who remembers that this company was built on one idea, that every person who walks in deserves to be treated like they matter. He paused. That's you. Simone pressed her lips together. Her eyes glistened, but she didn't cry. She nodded once, firm, steady. I won't let you down, Mr. Voss. I know you won't. Callum glanced at this photograph of Eleanor on the wall, still crooked, still dusty. First thing tomorrow morning, clean that frame, straighten it, put fresh flowers next to it if you want. She deserves better than what she's been getting in this building. Simone looked at the photograph. She nodded again, this time softer. Yes, sir, first thing. What happened at location 14 didn't stay at location 14. Within a short time of Marissa and Derek's termination, Preston Hale had assembled a 5-person audit team at Golden Hearth's corporate office in downtown Columbus. Their job was simple. Pull every register log, every transaction receipt, and every manual override from location 14 going back 11 months. Then do the same for all 61 other locations. It took time. What they found was worse than Callum expected. Location 14 was the epicenter. The numbers were ugly and precise. Over the course of 11 months, Marissa Kane had added fraudulent service charges to over 4,000 individual transactions. Derek Holt had added roughly 1,800 more in his 5 months. Combined total, $8,200 in phantom fees, skimmed almost entirely from Black and Latino customers. The pattern was surgical. White customers were never charged the fee. Not once. The overcharges only appeared on orders taken during shifts when Marissa or Derek were working the register. On days when other employees covered, the charges disappeared completely. Preston presented the findings to Callum in the corporate boardroom, spreadsheets projected on a screen, graphs showing the spike in Mississippi service fees that began the month Marissa was hired. A color-coded map of every affected transaction. Callum sat at the head of the table and stared at the numbers for a long time. The room was silent. Then he spoke. This is a failure of oversight, mine included. I should have caught this sooner. We all should have. He didn't deflect. He didn't point fingers at middle management. He owned it. And then he acted. The Westerville Police Department opened a formal fraud investigation within a short time of Preston's report. Detectives pulled security camera footage from the diner, reviewed register access logs, and interviewed 6 former customers who confirmed they'd been charged fees they didn't recognize, but never questioned. Marissa Kane was charged with 12 counts of misdemeanor theft and 4 counts of fraud. Her lawyer attempted to negotiate a quiet plea deal, community service, and a fine. The district attorney rejected it. The DA's office cited the clear racial targeting pattern in the charges. Every victim was a person of color. Every single one. That wasn't random. That wasn't carelessness. That was a system. The DA referred the case to the state attorney general's office for review as a potential civil rights violation. Marissa's case went before a judge. She stood in a courtroom in a wrinkled blazer, eyes swollen, clutching a tissue. Her lawyer argued financial hardship and a clean prior record. The judge listened. Then he spoke. 18 months of supervised probation, 200 hours of mandatory community service to be served at a food bank in the same neighborhood where she'd stolen from her customers, full restitution of every dollar taken, $8,200 paid in monthly installments, a permanent criminal record that would follow her through every background check for the rest of her career. When the judge read the sentence, Marissa sobbed. Not quietly, the kind of crying that bends a person in half. Her lawyer put a hand on her shoulder. Nobody else in the courtroom moved. Derek Holt cooperated with investigators from day one. He provided a full written statement confirming that Marissa had created the scheme, trained him to execute it, and assured him they'd never be caught. His cooperation resulted in reduced charges, 2 counts of misdemeanor theft instead of 12. But the charges were not dismissed. He received 12 months of probation, 100 hours of community service, and full restitution of the $1,500 he'd taken. The story didn't end in the courtroom. A local television station broke the story first. The headline ran across the bottom of the screen during the evening news. Undercover CEO discovers employees charging culture tax at family diner chain. Within a day, the story went regional. Within 2, it went national. News outlets across the country picked it up. Social media erupted. The phrase culture tax became a hashtag trending on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok for 3 straight days. Over 12 million impressions in the first week alone. People shared their own stories, thousands of them. Stories about being overcharged at restaurants, being followed in stores, being treated differently at checkout counters. The hashtag became a mirror, and what it reflected was something millions of people had experienced, but never had a name for. Callum Voss did one interview. Just one. A sit-down with a local journalist. No publicist. No teleprompter. No prepared statement. He wore a simple dark suit. He sat in a chair across from the reporter and spoke plainly. My mother believed that a meal is dignity. You walk through the door, you sit down, you're served with respect, and you leave full. That was her promise to every customer. It's printed on every menu we have. And what happened at location 14 was a betrayal of that promise. Not just by 2 employees, but by a system that allowed it to go unnoticed for almost a year. That's on all of us. That's on me. The clip was viewed over 9 million times in its first week. Callum didn't stop at accountability. He rebuilt. Within a month, Golden Hearth Diners rolled out a company-wide reform package, the most comprehensive in the chain's 35-year history. Mandatory anti-discrimination training for every employee at every location, updated quarterly. No exceptions. No delays. An anonymous customer feedback system linked directly to corporate headquarters, bypassing local managers entirely. Any complaint about discriminatory treatment would trigger an automatic investigation within 48 hours. New receipt auditing software installed across all 62 locations. The software flagged any manual charge that didn't match an existing menu item in real time. If an employee added a charge that wasn't in the system, a notification went straight to corporate before the receipt was even printed. And finally, the centerpiece of the reform, a program called Eleanor's Promise. Any customer at any Golden Hearth location who experienced or witnessed discriminatory treatment would receive a free meal, a formal written apology, and an immediate corporate investigation. The program was printed on every menu, posted on every wall, and featured on the company's website. Callum personally visited all 62 locations over the following months, not in disguise this time, in a suit with his name on his chest. He sat down with every manager, every shift lead, every cashier. He told them the story of what happened at location 14. He told them about his mother. And he told them what Golden Hearth was supposed to stand for. Not one employee looked away while he spoke. Months later, location 14 looked like a different place. The checkered floor was the same. The red vinyl booths were the same. But something had changed. Something you felt the moment you walked in. Laughter. Real. Vermindaan laughter. Silverware clinking. Kids talking with their mouths full. Simone Rivera stood behind the register in a pressed Golden Hearth polo. She greeted every customer by name if she knew it, and by welcome home if she didn't. Customer satisfaction scores at location 14 were now the highest in the entire chain. Not by a little, by a lot. And there, right next to the entrance, was the photograph of Eleanor Voss. Centered, polished, fresh sunflowers in a small vase beneath it. Simone replaced them every Monday morning. The college student, her name was Jasmine, worked there now. 3 shifts a week, saving for textbooks and tuition. Simone hired her the week after taking over and mentored her personally. Jasmine was fast, kind, and remembered every kid's name. She kept the cookie jar full at all times. On a quiet morning, a black Mercedes pulled into the parking lot. No disguise, no hoodie. Callum Voss stepped out in a dark suit and walked through the front door. The bell chimed. The same bell. The same sound. Simone saw him from across the room. She didn't shake his hand. She hugged him. A real one. "Welcome back, Mr. Voss." "Good to be back, Simone." He sat in the same booth, the one closest to the counter, the same seat where he'd spent 2 hours watching everything fall apart. He ordered the Eleanor special. It arrived in 4 minutes. Fried chicken golden and crisp, collard greens, cornbread with butter melting on top, a coffee with a lid, and a cookie on a small napkin. Jasmine brought it to his table and smiled. "On the house, Mr. Voss." Callum reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out the laminated photograph. Eleanor Voss, flour-dusted apron, the widest smile he'd ever known. He placed it on the table right next to his plate. He ate slowly. No phone. No notebook. No checklist. Just a man sitting across from a photograph of his mother, eating the meal she invented in the restaurant she built. For the first time in this entire story, Callum smiled. Not a polite smile. Not a tired one. A full, unguarded, deep-in-the-chest kind of smile. The kind his mother used to wear. The front door chimed again. A young black man walked in, early 20s, hands in his pockets, looking around the dining room like he wasn't sure if he was allowed to be there. Simone's voice rang out before he could hesitate another second. "Come on in. Sit anywhere you like. Welcome to Golden Hearth." The young man relaxed. He smiled. He sat down. Callum watched from his booth. He nodded to himself slowly, quietly. Then he picked up the photograph, pressed his thumb across his mother's face one last time, and tucked it back into his pocket. He left a $100 bill on the table. No note, no name. He walked out the door. The bell chimed behind him. That's the question I want to leave you with today. Because the small cruelties are the ones that survive the longest. Not because they're invisible, but because people see them and decide they're not worth the trouble. The eye roll at the register, the coupon that suddenly won't scan, the smile that disappears when certain people walk in. Those things don't survive because nobody notices. They survive because nobody speaks up. Callum didn't scream, didn't make a scene. He sat down, watched, documented, and when the time came, he acted. Not with anger, but with clarity. You don't need to own 62 restaurants to do what he did. You just need to decide that silence isn't something you're comfortable with anymore. Have you ever been treated differently because of how you look? Drop your story in the comments. I read every one. If this story hit you somewhere real, share it. Like, subscribe. Because the world doesn't change when powerful people act. It changes when regular people refuse to look away. Skin color tells you nothing about who someone is. Don't treat people different just because they look different. That's not strength. That's ugly. Respect everybody. No exceptions.